The PVC pipe cap on my workbench has 2 inches of amber liquid in it, and the new hickory handle on my grain shovel is standing point down in it, soaking. The barn smells like pine tar and beeswax. 12 hours in, the wood has drunk half of what I poured. 24 hours from now, I will pull that handle out, hang it on the rack, and never think about it again for 20 years. I have 38 handles in this barn. Every one of them has been through this cap. An English family, that is what we Amish call folks who are not of our church, the English, your regular neighbors with a garden, a wood stove, and a snow shovel, goes through 2 or 3 handles a year at $18 to $25 a handle from the big box hardware store that is $40 to $75 a year on wood. That should last 20. Across rakes, hoes, and axes, you are looking at $200 to $400 a year on replacement wood. Across a lifetime, that is a new truck. My name is Isaac Clapp. I am Amish. I farm 47 acres in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. I keep 11 hives, and I have built and broken in more handles than I can count on every tool from a splitting maul to a post hole digger. I have never bought a replacement tool handle in my life, not one, not ever. Every handle in my barn was treated by me with the same mix my grandfather taught me to mix when I was 9 years old. The tool manufacturers in this country have known about this since 1937, when the United States Department of Agriculture published a bulletin on handle preservation that quietly went out of print a decade later. The replacement handle aisle at the hardware store is the most profitable square footage in the building. By the end of this, you will know exactly how to treat one handle this weekend for less than $2 and never buy another. Stay with me. Let me start with what most folks get wrong about a broken tool handle. Folks think the handle broke because they hit a rock, or because they leaned on it too hard, or because they got a cheap one. None of that is the truth. The handle broke because the wood dried out. The handle broke because the grain opened. The handle broke because the fibers lost their flexibility and turned brittle from sun, rain, and the cycling of humidity in a barn or a shed or a garage. Every crack in every handle you have ever thrown away started as a microscopic gap inside the grain that you could not see, opened by moisture going in and out of the wood faster than the wood could stand. The big box stores sell you a handle that was kiln dried to 7% moisture, sanded smooth, dipped in a coat of wax that makes it look pretty on the rack, and shipped to a climate it was never dried for. You take it home, you hang the tool on the wall of a shed that swings from 40% humidity in summer to 90% in winter, and the wax holds moisture in where it should not and keeps it out where it should go in. The wood moves, the grain opens, the fibers snap. That is not your fault. That is not the wood's fault. That is the fault of a supply chain that decided a pretty handle on the rack was worth more than a handle that lasted. Hickory and ash are the proper handle woods in this country. Hickory for the shock tools, the axes, the sledges, the splitting mauls because the long fibers absorb a blow and give it back. Ash for the prying tools, the digging bars, the pry bars, the mattocks because the grain bends and returns. They grow them, they kiln them. They sell them as consumables. They are not consumables. They are the backbone of every tool in your shed, and they were meant to be treated. Here is how the trick works, and I will keep it plain. Wood is a bundle of hollow fibers, like a handful of straws glued together. When the wood is alive, those fibers are full of sap. When the tree is cut, the sap leaves, the fibers empty, and the wood starts trading moisture with the air around it, pulling humidity in when the air is wet, pushing moisture out when the air is dry. Every cycle of in and out swells the fibers a little, then shrinks them a little, and over a season or two the glue between them starts to give way. That is a weather check. That is the start of a snap. What you want is to fill those fibers with something that does not evaporate, something that stays liquid enough to flex with the wood, something that does not turn rancid in the grain. That something is a 50-50 mix of boiled linseed oil and pure turpentine. Boiled linseed oil is linseed oil that has been heated with a drying agent so it cures to a soft, flexible film inside the wood instead of staying sticky on the surface. Turpentine is the distilled sap of the longleaf pine, and it is the thinnest natural solvent a man can buy at the hardware store without a permit. Mixed together, the turpentine thins the linseed oil enough to soak deep into the grain, then evaporates off and leaves the oil behind. The oil cures, the fibers stay coated. The wood stops trading moisture with the air, the wood stops moving, the wood stops cracking. The Forest Products Laboratory in Madison, Wisconsin, run by the United States Forest Service since 1910, published a study in 1937 on the service life of treated versus untreated tool handles. They soaked hickory handles in a linseed turpentine bath for 48 hours, hung them in a humidity chamber for 2 years, and compared them to untreated handles from the same lot. The untreated handles checked within 11 months. The treated handles were still sound at the 24-month mark and showed no cracking when loaded to failure. The treated handles took 40% more for us to break. The study went into a USDA bulletin. The bulletin went to county extension offices, and the bulletin disappeared. From print inside a decade. There is a reason it disappeared. A treated handle is a one-time sale. An untreated handle is a recurring sale. The math is not complicated. The traditional Amish version of this mix uses pine rosin dissolved in turpentine with a smaller amount of linseed oil. Pine rosin is the hardened sap that drips down the bark of a pine when it is wounded, and it is the same stuff the fiddler on the courthouse square rubs on his bow. Dissolved into turpentine, it makes a thin amber. Varnish that soaks deep and hardens into a tough, flexible film inside the grain. The old-timers gathered it from the wound scars on pitch pines along the fence line, melted it down in a tin can over a slow fire, and cut it with turpentine until it ran like honey. You can still buy pine rosin in the violin supply of any music store or in the rosin bag at the baseball dugout for about $4 a cake. Boiled linseed oil and turpentine from the hardware store will do the same job for 98% of folks and is easier to find. I will be honest with you, the rosin version is better, but the linseed version is good enough, and good enough done this weekend beats perfect never done at all. You will need 3 things. 1. A clean, dry, untreated hickory or ash handle, either a new one from the lumberyard for $12 to $15 or an old one you have sanded down to bare wood with 80 grit paper. If you are reclaiming an old handle, take the wax off first with a rag dampened in turpentine. The wax is what is sealing the moisture in, and the mix cannot soak through wax. Sand the grip end smooth, sand the neck smooth, leave the grain open. Do not varnish, do not paint, do not polyurethane. The wood has to breathe through the pore at the top or the mix will not travel up the grain. 2. A pint of the 50-50 mix boiled linseed oil from a $9 quart and pure gum spirits of turpentine from an $8 pint, enough to treat 10 handles at about 90 cents a handle in material. Not paint thinner, not mineral spirits. Real turpentine, the kind that says pure gum spirits on the can, the synthetic. Stuff does not carry the oil the same way, and you will smell the difference for a month. 3. A PVC pipe cap, 3 inches across and 6 inches deep, the kind you cap off a drain pipe with, $2 at the plumbing aisle. You can also use a tin can with the top cut off or a wide-mouth mason jar, but the PVC cap is what every Amish shop in this county uses because it does not rust and it does not break when you drop it. Mix the linseed oil and turpentine 50-50 in a clean jar. Stir it, pour 2 inches of the mix into the PVC pipe cap. Stand the tool handle point down the business end, the end that takes the shock into the cap. Prop it so it stands upright on its own. Walk away. The wood will drink. You will see the level in the cap drop. After 12 hours, top it off. After 24 hours, look at the top of the handle near the grip. You will see a wet line creeping up the grain. After 48 hours, that wet line will reach the grip end, and you are done. The way to tell the handle is done is to look at the top. The end of the handle that sticks up out of the cap, the grip end, will darken as the mix travels up the grain. When you see a wet line at the grip end, the handle is saturated. Some woods drink faster than others. Hickory is slow, ash is fast, oak is in between, though I do not recommend oak for a handle. 24 hours for ash, 48 for hickory, 36 for oak. If you are not sure, leave it another 12 hours. The wood cannot overdrink. The wood will only take what the grain will hold, and the rest stays in the cap for the next handle. Pull the handle out, wipe it down with a dry rag, and stand it in a corner to cure for a week. The linseed oil will harden inside the wood. The turpentine will be gone. It has done its job. It carried the oil in, and it evaporated off through the open pore at the top of the handle. After a week, the handle will feel different in your hands, heavier, smoother. Slightly tacky the first day, then dry and solid. If you have an axe, a mattock, a sledge, or any tool with the head fitted on the handle, do this before you hang the head. Soak the whole handle, let it cure, then fit the head. The tool will outlast you. If you have a tool already hung and the head will not come off, you can soak the whole length in a piece of 4-inch PVC pipe capped at the bottom, filled to cover the grip end. It costs more in materials, $15 for the pipe and 2 caps, but it will treat 3 or 4 handles at a time and you only buy it once. For the first 3 months after you treat a handle, wipe it down with a rag dampened in the same mix every couple of weeks. The wood will keep drinking. After 3 months, the grain is saturated and you only need to refresh it once a year in the fall before you put tools away for winter. One warning: Boiled linseed oil cures by absorbing oxygen, and a rag soaked in it can catch fire on its own in a warm corner of a barn. I am not exaggerating. Spread your rags flat on a concrete floor to dry, or drop them in a bucket of water with a lid on it. Do not wad them up and throw them in the trash. Every volunteer fire department in Lancaster County has been called to a shop fire that started with a linseed rag. Treat the oil like the fuel it is. Total cost per handle, first time, is about $1.80 in material. That is $2 rounded up, and it is the last $2 you will spend on that handle. Total time on the bench, not counting cure, is 15 minutes of your weekend. 10 minutes to mix, 2 minutes to stand the handle, 3 minutes to top it off the next morning. $2 of material, 1 weekend, and you have a handle that will not snap, will not splinter, will not weather check. Here is the math. A replacement hickory handle at the big box hardware store is $18 to $25. A whole new shovel with a handle already on it is $40 to $60. The Amish way is $1.80 of material per handle one time, and the handle lasts 20 years. A typical English household with a garden, a wood stove, and a snow shovel goes through 2 handles a year at $20 each, which is $40 a year, which is $800 over 20 years, on one tool, on wood that should have been treated once and forgotten. Across rakes, hoes, and axes, call it 8 handles. Around a property you are looking at $3,200 over 20 years. $3,200 that went to the replacement handle aisle of a hardware store for wood that the same store knew would fail. The Amish way is $16 for all 8 handles, 1 weekend, and you are done for 2 decades. $16 versus $3,200. That is the math the big box store does. Not what you're doing in their aisle. There is a whole industry built on selling you the cure for a sickness that the same industry installed in your shed in the first place. The cheap tool manufacturing industry, the factories that turn out $15 shovels by the container load, the big box hardware stores that dedicate a full aisle to replacement handles, the catalog companies that mail you a flyer every spring showing a fresh set of garden tools next to a fresh set of replacement handles has known about linseed oil soaking since at least 1937. That is the year the Forest Products Laboratory published the study I told you about. The study was clear. The study was cheap to act on. The study was buried. What replaced it was a quieter agreement among the folks who profit from selling you wood. They kiln dry the handles down to nothing. They dip them in wax so they look good on the rack. They ship them across 3 climate zones, and they sell them to you knowing the wax will trap moisture in the grain and the wood will check inside. A year. Then they sell you the replacement. Then they sell you the replacement for the replacement. By 1972, the county extension bulletins that still mentioned linseed oil soaking had been quietly pulled from print. By 1991, the only place you could find the recipe was in old farmers' almanacs and in the shops of a few stubborn Amish woodworkers who never forgot it. The big box store does not want you to know this. The replacement handle manufacturer does not want you to know this. The garden tool catalog does not want you to know this. A treated handle is a one-time sale. An untreated handle is a customer for life. Everything I have covered across this channel, the stove, the wall, the water, this is in one place now. I put it together with exact materials, exact quantities, and exact steps for a home you already own. It is called 93 Traditional Lancaster County Methods to Cut Your Household Expenses by $4,000 a Year. Lincoln. The description. But stay here, because what comes next is the part nobody is talking about. My grandfather walked the property every Saturday morning in summer with an empty coffee can, and he called it walking the line. He checked fences. He checked hives. He checked handles. Every tool in the barn got picked up, turned over, looked at. If a handle had a check starting, he set it aside. On Sunday afternoon, while the rest of us read, he would treat 3 or 4 handles at a time in a length of pipe he kept capped at one end and propped in the corner of the shop. By fall, every tool was ready for winter. The Amish do not replace handles. The Amish do not buy shovels in spring. The Amish do not stand in the hardware store aisle in April wondering which replacement to buy this year. We treat them, we hang them, we use them, and we pass them down. I have a splitting maul in my barn with a handle my grandfather treated in 1962. I have used it every winter of my life. My father used it before me. My grandfather used it before him. The handle is sound. The handle has never snapped. There is a kind of man who treats his tools. There is a kind of man who hangs a handle on the wall and forgets about it until it breaks. The first kind builds something. The second kind keeps buying. The cheap tool manufacturing industry has spent 80 years training the second kind of man because the second kind of man is profitable, and the first kind of man is not. A man who can treat one handle and use it for 20 years is a man who needs to ask no one's permission and pay no one's bill. That is the whole of it. Most folks do not know this anymore. The Amish did not invent this trick. The old-timers of every people in this country knew it, the German farmers in the Palatinate, the English. Colonists in Massachusetts, the Irish in the hills of Tennessee. The Amish just held on to it after everybody else forgot. Hold on to it now. This weekend. Here is what I want you to do. Go to the hardware store, buy a quart of boiled linseed oil, a pint of pure gum spirits of turpentine, and a PVC pipe cap 3 inches across. Total cost, about $20, and you will have enough material to treat every handle in your shed. Pick the worst handle you own, the one with the hairline. Crack the one that is starting to splinter at the grip and treat it. Stand it in the cap, walk away. Come back Monday and you will have a different tool in your hands. Tell me in the comments below what kind of shovel or tool handle you snapped last and how much you paid to replace it. I want to hear what the big box stores are charging in your part of the country. I read every one of these. Some of you will say you have never snapped a handle. Some of you will say you snapped 3 last year. Tell me the truth. Tell me the dollar amount. The numbers will surprise you when you see them all in one place. Next time I am going to show you how to hang an axe head so it never flies off, which involves a hickory wedge split from the same tree the handle came from, a bucket of warm beeswax from my own hives, and a single copper rivet that you would never guess belongs on a tool handle. That one is going to upset the axe manufacturers even. More than this one upset the handle makers. Bring your safety glasses. Bring a hammer. Stay sharp, stay steady, and remember the people who built this country with their hands knew things we are only just starting to remember.